Okay, yeah, Sarah Lopez is on.
She is.
Okay. Sarah's on, and I'm not sure where Commissioner Beatty is, but let's get started.
We just muted.
Morning, everybody, again. I'm not going to repeat what I just said. So, Tom, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chairman. And I know Mr. Beatty's in the building. I'm sure he'll show up. Steph, you want to start us off with county announcements for?
Sure.
For the May 3rd meeting.
Right. We're going to have just one item in county announcements. That's going to be the launch of the second phase of Civic Ready Alerts. So someone from emergency management will join us to talk about. We're now having 17 cities participating in addition to the 2 test cities in the first phase. That was Wichita and Mount Hope. And that's it.
And then it is Proclamation Day at the county. Apparently we have 6. So 1 for each commissioner and 2 for you, Chairman, I guess. So we'll go through that. I'd like a little input. We sometimes do photos. I don't know how you guys want to do photos. Do we want to come down? Do we want comms taking pictures? I think it makes nice pictures on the website. Any input on that, or just keep doing what we're doing?
Well, with this many, maybe they can get the award right in front of us. We just stand up, take a picture instead of us. It just takes a lot of time. Get down and back with this many proclamations.
But if there's only one, that looks kind of awkward. 5 of us are standing up behind and 1 standing in front of us. So
Yeah, it's not a great. We had the same problem in the old room too. You guys had to come back from around. Maybe it's a situation.
Maybe the person reading the proclamation meet the person down there in front of us. Show the proclamation, something like that.
We'll think of something. It might be, we could also ask anybody receiving a proclamation just to hang on. We bring the commission down one time and we just take.
Do all of them.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
we'll figure out something logistically. It's going to be a little, normally if it's just a proclamation or 2, but with 6, it's and I'm not sure how many of these where we actually will have people there. So
there are steps in it.
we also have a number of appointments, a couple of cab members for Commissioner Howell and also a solid waste management committee person. And then we get into new business. Adrian has sent you all an email yesterday or day before on the grant application for $6.5 million from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Overdose Data. There's positions in that grant for health department and for Regional Forensic Science Center. Dr. Stedman has talked with, has been in communication with Adrian on that grant. It's centered toward fentanyl and opioid management and trying to get overt actions in regard to that problem. So, and Adrian will present and Shelley will be there as well to answer any questions from the commission. Item K is an OJA grant for the establishment of the Veterans Court, the continuing establishment of the Veterans Court. This particular grant will fund 2 positions for Steve Stonehouse, an intensive supervision officer, and a specialty court administrator, which will help on the back end of the Veterans Court. So that's for approval on item K.
You want us to ask questions as we go?
Sure. Yes, that might be best. And I don't know, maybe Rusty, Steve on. Yeah, Steve's online. So go ahead.
2 questions. We don't have to have answers today, but I'm going to want to know a little bit details of how this is going to run. I mean, I'm very supportive of veterans. Almost anything with deal with veterans, I'm very supportive of. But I'd like to know how this is going to run. What's the what's the mechanics of a veterans court, and then I'd like to know what the long-term financial obligation is to the county commission or the specialty court.
I'm trying to think of who's. Rusty, you want to go?
Steve, do you want to weigh in here? Did you hear Commissioner Howell's question?
Sure. So the Veterans Treatment Court is going to be run a lot like drug court in that these are all for post-adjudicated folks who The current cohort will be folks who are eligible for services through the VA, because the VA will be doing the treatment portion of the Veterans Treatment Corps. Corrections will do the supervision. The district attorney's office supplies the attorney. The district court provides the judge, and we will contract with the OJA supplies defense counsel through bids, the Bureau of Indigent Defense. The long-term impact for the county would be if this grant went away and we decided to continue it, we're getting good outcomes, it would be similar to what we pay for drug court, in that the same folks will be doing the supervision of the offenders. The addition of this one ISO 2 and the specialty court administrator could be an ongoing county expense, besides the other items that I mentioned with the DA's office and the court.
Steve, what's the target date for this all to become effective and operational?
The first part of July is the target date. There's some training that folks are going to in June. And then in August, Justice for Vets will be in Wichita to train the whole drug court cohort on how to get this up and running with fidelity to the model.
I think to adequately answer Commissioner Howe's question, I think we need to get all the players in the room. I'll set it for a staff in early June so that we get the logistics, because all the commissioners supported this. We get the logistics of how it operates, and then we'll do the financials on what long-term.
Don't interpret my questions as I'm not a supporter. I am, but yes, I just have questions on, for example, let's say someone is a honorably discharged veteran that just served 30 years ago, and they have some type of, it says post adjudication, so I assume that means they have a conviction. What exactly is the court doing for them that they don't get right now with VA benefits or whatever? What are we providing this in addition to what's already available to them? And again, why DA and why lawyers involved in this if it's post adjudication? I don't understand what exactly they're getting from taxpayer money. I don't understand that part of it. Now, if we're somehow offsetting their criminal offense by some type of treatment program, is it like a deferral of their sentence, or what are we talking about?
And Commissioner Howell, I understand, and either Rusty Leeds or Steve Stonehouse can correct me if I get this wrong, is that I think they would be given a deferred sentence where they would be able to complete treatment, complete certain program requirements. If they don't do that, there may be the consequence of having a sanction, and that's probably why they have legal counsel there to represent them and those types of things. But again, if there's any other comments or corrections on that.
And so what type of crimes are we talking about? I mean,
any eligible crime for probation, or community corrections probation. So it's usually felonies of some sort. We get a lot of folks who are departure from prison, so that they're allowed to do this instead of going to prison. Treatment court models give selected populations like drug courts, mental health courts, and veterans treatment courts extra support in that there's a docket every week. So when a typical offender gets probation, they'll see a judge and then work through the system behind the scenes with the probation officer. A team of folks, including a veteran mentor, shows up at court every week to review their progress, have an instant consequence, such as going to jail if they are violated on their probation, and also to receive awards, positive and negative sanctions, depending on how they act. So it's similar to drug court, except the way they get to us is because of their service and not because of their substance abuse history.
so on the drug court, one of the qualifiers is the substance abuse or substance addiction is a qualifier to get into that program. On this one, being a veteran, even though it may have been a long time ago, so someone who commits a crime who has a veteran history, but maybe it was decades ago, may not be a factor in the crime in any way, but that qualifies them for this program, whereas someone who is not a veteran potentially could be treated exactly the same way, but because they don't qualify, they weren't a veteran, they don't get this opportunity. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
I mean, I'm very pro-veteran. I'm just wondering about trying to, in terms of CJCC, trying to minimize the incarceration and manage people in the community in a different way. I appreciate what's being provided to a veteran, but I'm wondering why we don't expand it to other people. Thank you.
Next item.
Let's go.
Item L is a amendment of lease agreement for Fire Station 34, 5, and 6. And Lindsay's here if there's questions, but I know this has, when the commission last September or August, when we ratified the budget, approved the $2 million to be spent toward the fire station payoffs. I know that there's a response to that. So Lindsay, if you have any questions on that, Lindsay's here to answer, or I think Chief's here too somewhere. So.
Okay.
Item M is the ongoing purchase agreement for the sheriff's airplane. We're getting closer. Joe Thomas has been working hard to get that deal done. So this is the approval of the contract to get that airplane acquired. Lindsay on item N, I know wants to speak here. This is our ARP update. Lindsay, you want to kind of step us through this?
Yes. So commissioners, you remember in February, we had the presentation. We went through line by line what was in the ARPA spend plan. There were a lot of questions. We had a March 7th briefing in a staff setting. There were some additional questions. I sent you a note last night that basically walks through changes in response to the questions and feedback we received from you. So on Recovery Connect, you'll see that the amount in 2024 has been reduced to $250,000. That is the most we would anticipate going toward that program. Bren is working with them now to set outcomes and expectations and focus the program on workforce, on childcare. And then there was some support for continuing to assist nonprofits that have been negatively impacted because of COVID and how that changed their operations. So he is working through that with them for now. That may yet still come up for discussion, but we know we'll come back to you most likely a couple more times before we get to the 2024 spend plan. So there will still be plenty of opportunity to address that. There are questions about risk fit testing, the respiratory protection program. I understand that those questions have been resolved, so we have left that as is. There also were questions about communications. Some additional information was included in that email I sent last night. Basically, the goal for the summer is to focus on the folks who are most vulnerable. So that would be our minority populations or those who are 65 plus who are immunocompromised. And then for the duration of the year to focus on getting folks to get into the new COVID and COVID flu shots that CDC will be recommending. The cells in green are those that also had caught your attention in February. We did talk about them in March, but I just want to refresh your memory. Those were areas where we thought maybe because COVID wasn't so active in the community, maybe we didn't need to fund all of those programs. So we have reallocated those dollars to a new contingency called the COVID surge contingency. So those dollars are off separate. No one's able to access those unless there is something that can validate that there's a surge in either COVID, or we have a couple of finance positions that were moved there. Let's say the mental health hospital becomes arduous and the state won't allow us to use ARPA funds to support any extra work that comes from there. We may request to access those funds at that time. So obviously, we're still at 100.2 million. That overall total didn't change, but you can see that the contingency amounts have varied slightly, plus the changes that you all have talked about. We feel like we have consensus on these changes that have been made. So we'll do a much quicker presentation, hopefully on Wednesday than what you saw in February, just to highlight these areas and get that plan approved. So I'm happy to answer questions today, or I can between now and Wednesday.
I'm still concerned about Recovery Connect. I don't understand why we still got $500,000 in 2023.
So when we had talked with commissioners, we have support to allow them to try and pivot the program toward workforce development and childcare, which were identified as the highest priorities. by the commissioners in
I
discussion.
agree,
So,
but that- you were talking about that in 2024. Why do we have 500,000 still in 2023?
oh, we're asking them to do that right now. And we're asking them to develop outcomes and to do all that. So we are in the middle of talking about that with Recovery Connect. So right now, we have a contract that says 500,000 not to exceed for 2023. If it is the commission's desire to go back and have us renegotiate that contract, we surely can. I honestly don't believe that we will hit $500,000 this year anyway. But if we need to go back and scale that down, we certainly can.
And at the end of it, you've already told us several times that we can move some of this money into general fund to cover other areas. And this money is much more important to me in general fund than it is in Recovery Connect.
So I think that, well, and just let me clarify how that process will work. What we'll actually be able to do is move expenses out of the general fund and into ARPA, which would free up other general fund cash. So I just want to clarify how that technically will work. But yes, that would be something that we will consider as a part of 2024 next year. We have several CIP projects already listed in this that we are worried about actual costs when supply chain issues come to light and labor costs. I'm particularly worried, for example, about the sheriff camera system. So I think earmarking it in that CIP contingency for now for 2023 is good, but I think hopefully by the end of 2023, we'll know where we stand on all of those and can start to have that conversation for 2024.
Everything I hear locally and from Topeka is property tax is one of the main issues.
Mhm.
And anything that we can do to lessen the burden on property tax is important. Right now, I don't see that putting $500,000 this year or even $250,000 next year into Recovery Connect is as important as protecting our property tax side.
Okay.
Property tax amount that we receive. So
Understood.
thank you.
Okay,
That's
any
all I
other
had on
questions
ARPA, and
about ARPA? Okay,
Follow up with folks between now and then.
thanks for the explanation.
Thanks for letting me.
Item O is consideration of a request for a letter of support for participation in a community grant match for air service. I know Brent has briefed you all, maybe not you, Commissioner, you were out of town, Commissioner Dennis, but we'll get you briefed up after the meeting.
I was in the meeting.
Oh, you also had, you were in
I was. He has a brief, I was in the meeting.
but you were at the meeting, so you're aware. All of you are aware that we have an opportunity to maybe get a direct flight east to the East Coast. There's $1 million grant out there. They need some type of commitment from the county. What we're asking for in this agenda item is just a letter of commitment with the potential of spending up to $150,000 out of EcoDevo fund to support this process. So Brent will present that on, I don't know if he's here today, but he will present that on
He's on.
Wednesday. Okay. Any questions for Brent if he's online?
This morning's meeting on this, it's maybe just slight discussion. If we say in a letter that we will make it a budget request, that's not near as impactful that if we vote to say we are going to approve 150,000 from EcoDevo fund, whatever, if it's this year, next year, whatever, a commitment is better on their application than we will put in a budget request. The city was there as well, and that was kind of clarified. So I would prefer that we are able to vote to approve the funding of this along with our letter of support whenever the funding is due. It may not be, it likely won't be due till the first quarter next year.
So in the backup of this agenda item, we have stated that if this is approved, that $150,000 will be included in the county manager's 2024 recommended budget. Right now, we don't have a budget to guarantee it is in, but we can guarantee that we will put it in that budget when we move forward, should you all vote to approve it on Wednesday.
Well, and it's obviously, and it's the will of the commission too, but that's the, from my perspective, that's the, to deliver nonstop to DC and or Charlotte that's important. Okay.
Item Q is a item that we had pulled off of bid board a couple of weeks ago at a meeting. It is, and we are briefing you. I know some of you have been briefed and some of you are not. We're briefing you all today on the logistics of what is behind that, but it's basically just to extend the grant of the consultant for this. It is a, there's no cost to this. We're just trying to get the project done with the consultant. So that's the item. And Joe will actually present, but Tanya will be there to answer any questions today.
I don't think it should be item Q. I think it should be under item R. We brief bid board as bid board. We have to brief it as a special item.
So there's separate dates of bid board. And so historically, we have had one agenda item per bid board date. And so what you can see here is this is the April 13th meeting as Q. And then we had April 27th was R, and that way it allows folks to track everything through a process.
But when Joe gets up and briefs, he can say bid board from X number date to, and then bid board from this date or each item. I've never seen us having a separate item for bid board. It's all bid board.
Well, I'll defer to legal if it's appropriate to combine them. I mean, I don't know that we care.
I mean, in terms of a legal matter, I don't think it matters either way. It's more of an agenda setup item. So I don't have any, as long as it's made clear what the item is, like Lindsay was saying, as long as there's an ability to be clear. I don't think it matters if it's consolidated or not.
For what it's worth, I would probably pull it off the rest of the items anyway. So if it's already separated out, it just gives us a chance to talk about it. And by the way, I'm curious back on item Q for just a second, or I'm sorry, item O. Can we at least see a draft letter before will we see that today, or when will we see that?
I'll get with Brent after the meeting. I know we want to have it prepped for you in advance. Brent, what do you say on that?
Sure, I can send a draft letter out later today.
Thank you.
Okay, item R will be bid board then. Under consent items, item S is an easement, $2,511 for a street project at 45th Street North between the 127th and 143rd. Item T, and Adrian is on Zoom too, if there's questions about this. This is an agreement with the International Rescue Committee for the Health Department to provide some services for incoming refugees. I believe we've been contacted. Adrian, you might want to talk about this one just a little bit. You know, we've been asked by IRC to provide some help.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Adrian Byrne, Health Director. We used to be the primary provider for IRC, and then through the years, Health Corps now provides the primary services to the refugees coming into the community. There are more and more coming in, and so IRC asked if we were able to be a provider again, so that there wouldn't be such a long wait to be able to get these refugees screened, immunized, and referred to services if they need beyond what we can offer.
Now, how much does this cost?
This is no cost to us. We don't need to add any position to the staffing table. Right now, we're able to handle a few at a time. If it continues, we do have an open position for a nurse practitioner that we have on the staffing table but haven't filled. So if the amount of refugees that we need to serve is beyond our current capacity, then we would look at filling that position, and the revenue from serving the refugees would pay for that position.
Okay, and these are refugees and they're not illegal aliens.
No, they're all refugees.
Thank you, Adrian.
Before we move on consent, my alphabet's off this morning. I forgot item P. I went from O to Q. Item P is, while Brent has the podium, on the letter of support under item O, we will let him keep the podium and he will go through his quarterly financial report. I forgot to mention that for the public that's going to look at this. Item T, back to consent. I'm sorry, item U, back, what, I missed it. You have a question, Chairman?
We're just talking efficiencies.
That's right. Well, that way he doesn't have to leave the podium. That's as efficient.
Yes, that will be very efficient.
Item U is the annual agreement on EMCU, the DCF agreement for that operation. Item B is some CIP amendment for EMS post improvement, particularly item post 2 and 4. This is an ongoing process to try to get the existing EMS post a little nicer and brought up to date. Item W, and Tim is here to talk about this, is a couple of new positions for CDDO and a grant support position and a case manager 2. And I believe this is funded by the state, right?
Yeah, we accepted. CDDO received an increase in their contract for administrative services from the state. We accepted that. You approved that back in January. And these are one of the uses that we want to do with that additional funding. We need to streamline the process and get folks in a little bit quicker, and this will help us do that.
Do we have a new director of CDDO?
We're in the process of working on that. I'll brief you all as we get closer to that.
Okay, well, it's been a while since we've
But
had.
I think we'll address it during budget, right? Yeah, there'll be a different structure that we'll present to during budget hearings on that. Item X is some cleanup reclassifications through the HR office for corrections, the zoo, CDDO, and health department. The rest of the items on the regular agenda are routine, plats, general bill, payroll register. We do have a fire agenda. And Chief is here and Rusty to establish budget authority, essentially to get a drone. And I thought maybe Rusty or the chief, if you would like to talk about that.
Just a quick question. Item Z, I think that should be Meadow Lake Beach. I could be wrong, but
Meadow Lake, okay.
LAKE.
Thank you.
Please double check me, but I know where Meadow Lake Beach is. I don't know where Meadow Lark Beach is.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Chief.
And while Chief is walking up, commissioners, if you approve the lease agreements on the new business agenda for the county, are you okay putting this one on consent? For the fire district version of the same thing? Okay. Not getting much sadness about that, so. Sabrina had mentioned we could do that yesterday, so I think that seems like a good idea. Okay, I'm getting enough head nods and we're gonna do that. Air Chief.
Chairman's all about efficiency, so that would be.
That's what I hear.
Hello, Commissioners, Doug Williams, Fire Chief. We're asking to transfer from our equipment fund the funding to be able to purchase a much more operable drone than what we're running now. We have a small, low-cost one that we're operating, and then we have one that we borrowed from communications. It's a older one that they've had for many years. And it's out of date and it doesn't meet up with the new technology of anything you buy today. So, and it doesn't have thermal imaging. So our proposal for $31,744 is to transfer the money to be able to buy this updated drone. And it will have, I sent you an email, it'll have thermal imaging capability that we can see through smoke with it. We can watch wildland fires and we can do recon on those and see where they're moving, where they're going without the smoke bothering. When we drive trucks around trying to figure it out, we're trying to see through smoke and see through brush and trees and houses, and the drone will give us a bird's eye view to track those fires when they go through housing developments out in the county. Another one is the rescue. These drones are valuable in rescue. We can locate if you have a down plane, if you have a down ultralight out in the middle of a section and you can't see it through the trees, we can locate these things quickly with drones and get people to them. Hazmat calls, it's really valuable. The thermal imaging will show you the levels of liquids in hazmat tanks. If they're leaking, we can get a read real quick on a liquid level on a tank just by the thermal imaging of the drone. And also it's we can send, one of the things that we really like in hazmat is we can put that drone out there and do recon with it that we can't do by foot or with people. We can keep it upwind and we can view tank cars, or in chemical facilities, we can get it up there and look at stuff and that we would normally have to send crews into hazardous environments with. And now we can keep a drone and look at it from the top. And with the zoom cameras that these things have, we can read placards and chemical labels, and it's just a very valuable tool for us. And so that's why we're wanting to move ahead with updating to this type of a drone with the thermal imaging and the rescue capability. One thing it also has that's new is it can carry a small, like up to a 3-pound or 4-pound load. So if we're in a hazmat event, we can carry a monitor and put it at a site so that we can do offsite monitoring. As well as if you had a person that was trapped in a flood, we can carry a life jacket and drop to them, and a lot of things like that. So these are many of the things that are on these newer drones that we currently don't have.
And this is for one drone or?
Yeah.
Fleet?
One. Yeah.
That's one expensive drone.
Yes.
Look at all that it does. It's a lot. The thermal imaging.
One of the things that we find that works out really well for us is to get out there quick with a cheaper drone like we have now, and try to do something initial while the other drones getting set up with, like a drop arm or whatnot. And so running them in tandem is a really big issue or a method for us to work to.
So where's this going to be so that it can serve the whole county?
Right now we're carrying it. One of our investigators is carrying it, and he's responding on anything that he thinks needs it.
I will say police and fire are moving to drones because they're cheaper than helicopters. You could do all this with helicopter too for 3 or 4 million. It's much more cost effective, easy to maintain, and help save lives. So it's
one video that we used a drone on an event I was on 2 or 3 years ago, and with the thermal imaging, you can get on top of a building that you can't see even with aerial platforms, and you can look down into it with a drone, and that drone will show you where your water, because of the temperature variations, it'll show you your water stream hitting, and it can show you where the burning things are. So the guy running the drone can actually direct the guy running the Quinn or aerial to move, back or forth without having a guy sitting up there in the smoke looking down into it. And it was really a fascinating video, but it's too big to send by email.
So just along with this, again, it sounds like a great idea. I'm curious about the training required for the pilot. I guess pilots have to be certified, expanding the number of them. What's the cost on that end of it?
Right now, to get that original basic certification, it costs us about $500 per person to go through that class. And we currently have 2. We're going to work. We want to get up to, half a dozen or so that there are a lot more out there.
all we had, Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Commissioner Lopez, I know you're on Zoom.
Nope, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else here, staff? Okay. All right. Good. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.